So that day became cursed throughout history, and so that is why that event happened on that very day. Do you remember the story of the 10 spies who brought the bad report, and the 2, Joshua and Caleb, who brought the good report, and they had the big grape? Because they rejected the land and were afraid of the spies and didn't trust God, that day also became cursed throughout history. That happened on the 9th of Av, roughly our July, August. The temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar on that very day in 586 BC, and then 600 years later, Rome destroyed it in 70 AD on the very same day again. The year 1290, all the Jews were kicked out of England on the 9th of Av. 1492, all the Jews were kicked out of Spain on the 9th of Av. World War I started on the 9th of Av.
War of dramatic gains and losses.
Hitler's proclamation to kill the Jews was on the 9th of Av.
Der 6. Parteitag der Bewegung.
In 2005, again the Jews rejected the land, evacuating the Gaza Strip on the 9th of Av. The next year in 2006, the Lebanon War started on the 17th of Tammuz, the same day they worshiped the golden calf. So what is so amazing is when you can take your newspaper and have a biblical calendar and look at the events and when they're happening on the biblical calendar. So I want to encourage those of you who are interested in prophecy to get on God's calendar so you'll know when these prophecies are fulfilled.
하늘의 징조와 역사, 세계 역사와 성경과 과학을 연계해서 말씀을 이렇게 해주니까 너무나 확실하게 이렇게 들려왔고.
솔로몬에 대한 강의는 진짜 좀 충격이었어요.
앞으로 나타날 적그리스도가 어떤 모습인지가 솔로몬을 통해서 너무나 명확하게
개봉한 영화 회복은 한국에서만 유료 관객으로 17만 명이 봤고요. 한국 기독교에 이스라엘을 알리는 아주 중요한 역할을 했다라는 평가를 받고 있습니다. 뿐만 아니라 저 개인적으로도 이스라엘 사역을 구체적으로 하게 되는 아주 중요한 계기가 되었죠. 그래서 오늘은 그 영화 회복의 주인공이셨던 데이빗 오르티즈 그리고 또 그의 부인이신 레아 오르티즈 이 두 분을 제가 오랜만에 또 찾아왔습니다. 5년이라는 세월이 지난 지금 데이빗 오르티즈 또 레아 오르티즈 어떤 일들이 있었는지 오늘은 회복 그 이후의 이야기를 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 데이빗, 레아 이렇게 오래간만에 만나 뵙게 돼서 너무 반갑습니다. 저는 매년 이렇게 찾아와서 인사를 하지만 우리 데이빗하고 레아 씨는 5년 전에 회복 영화 만든 이후로 출연한 이후로 아마 한국 분들에게 처음 인사한 것 같아요. 먼저 브래드 TV 시청자들에게 인사를 좀 해주시죠.
It's exciting and great to be here on Brad TV. And I give my greetings to the people of Korea and for those that are watching.
We are just so happy always to see Director Brad and also to be able to speak to people in Korea and around the world about what God is doing here in Israel. And because people don't know, they see the bad things and they see the war and they see the conflicts, but they don't see what God is doing. So it's an honor to do that.
영화가 만들어진 이후로 한국에 두 분이 오셨어요. 그리고 극장에서 한국에서도 아주 큰 극장에서 영화가 상영이 됐는데 극장의 의자에 앉아서 큰 스크린으로 회복 영화가 이렇게 딱 상영되고 영화를 처음 보신 소감이 어떠셨습니까?
That was incredible. That was incredible. It's like Ami tells me, pinch me, I want to know if it's for real. It was incredible how you're able to use what God has given to you for the non-believers. Because, you know, we could show these things in churches, but non-believers don't go to church. It was bringing the gospel into the media of the people in front of that was incredible. That's incredible, yeah. We were very, very impressed with everything from A to Z. With E to Z.
제가 이스라엘에 와서 우연히 이제 데이비드 오르티즈 씨를 이제 알게 됐고 2008년도에 있었던 그 끔찍했던 사건을 알게 되면서 회복 영화를 만들게 됐어요. 전 세계 많은 나라의 그 다른 감독들도 있을 텐데 왜 하필이면 이스라엘에서 그렇게 먼 지구 반대편에 한국에서 온 한국인 감독이 이 회복이라는 영화를 만들고 전 세계에 이스라엘을 알리는 일을 하게 하셨을까요?
Director Brad Kim understands what is going on here in Israel, more than many Israelis understand. Because not only the Restoration movie, but every other movie that you've made, you cover every single angle that really exists in this land. And so you have an understanding that is really very, brilliant, actually. And it was like a miracle. So I think that's why you came, because the Lord gave it to you to do, because you covered the area of persecution very thoroughly and with a lot of understanding and from every angle that was possible. And that's how every movie is, that every documentary is that you make, actually. I'm very impressed by Director Brad Kim's movies, because just the understanding that you have of Israel is very amazing to me. It really is.
It's a gift from God.
It is a gift from God. That's true. Yeah.
자, 그럼 이제 여기서 좀 솔직히 좀 얘기를 해주세요. 처음에 제가 영화를 찍겠다고 데이비드 오르티즈 씨를 만나기 위해서 이 집에 왔을 때 저 사람이 과연 정말 영화를 만들 수 있을까? 잘 해낼 수 있을까? 이런 의심이 들진 않았었습니까?
They came in like a basketball team. You know, people that are in sports, they have that optimistic viewpoint. I just knew it was God.
Yeah, but I didn't think that it was going to be the way that it was. I didn't think it was going to be as professional and as complete as it was. It seemed like they came and they did everything really fast and then they were gone. And then all of a sudden, everywhere that we went, the camera team was with us, following us. But I wanted to say one other thing about why Korea, why that happened. Because of the connection that the South Koreans feel with Israel and see. I believe that's why the movie was made also, and the identification that Korea has with Israel.
They lift themselves up
from the ashes also,
together.
and the extreme love that Koreans have for Israel, and the prayer that goes from Korea to Israel, and the desire for connection in any kind of way, business and, you know, in every single kind of way. So I think that's another reason why the Lord had that movie to be made.
가족과 당사자에게는 가슴 아픈 일이겠지만 2008년도에 있었던 그 폭발 사건, 영화에서 소개한다고는 했지만 영화는 뭐 시간이 제한적이다 보니까 아주 자세하게 소개하지 못했는데 죄송하지만은 그때 당시에 있었던 일들을 좀 다시 한번 좀 구체적으로 소개를 해주시겠습니까?
Let's say before it happened, before. In Psalm 25, it says that God tells his secrets to his friends. God tells things to people before it happens. So before it happened, God was speaking to me. He says, David, I want to do something in your life, but at this point I cannot. I need your wineskin. The Bible says that Jesus said, I do not put new wine into wineskins that are old, but I renew it. I need a new wineskin to put in new wine. Because the Lord is like a businessman. He doesn't waste things. So when the Lord started speaking to me and telling me that there has to be a change, I knew there was going to be problems. I was in Norway, in the country of Norway. It was very cold, very, very cold, winter. And when I arrived in Norway, I told my friend, it's very cold. He says, it's never cold in Norway. He says, what happens, once you're dressed in good clothes, you're never going to be cold. The Lord started speaking to me. Soon it's going to be very cold. Make sure you have the armor of God, God's clothes, so when it gets cold, you'll be able to stand. Also, in Norway, in the morning, I saw the wind blowing very quickly, very strong. And I saw the trees moving. It was a very cold winter, very windy. And the Lord started to speak to me. The trees that have roots very deep are going to stand. The trees that don't have very good roots are going to fall. So the Lord started speaking to me. Then when I was here, I would say about 2 months before the bomb, Leah was vacuum cleaning the floor. I was in the table in the kitchen reading my Bible, and I opened up to Jeremiah chapter 9. I think in verse 21, it says, death is about to come through your windows, but your children are not safe. This is what it says. In Hebrew it says, death is going to come to the most secure place of your house, but your children are not safe. I told Leah, turn off the vacuum cleaner. God spoke to me. Something's going to happen to our children. We have problems with the Lebanese. We always have war in Gaza. So I said, maybe something's going to happen, but for sure something's going to happen because God gave me a promise in the opposite direction that something is about to take place. So the night before the bombing, I gave a Bible study in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 5. It says, I'm going to do something in your life. I'm going to do a work in your day that even if someone would tell you, you won't believe. I understood that as, David, there's going to be problems, but you have to believe me. Even if you don't see me working, I'm always working. In chapter 2, verse 1, it says, and the righteous person will live by faith. So when I read these things, I understood something was about to happen. I just had to believe, no matter what. So then the next day was the bombing. So when it took place, God was already speaking to me to hold on. Do not believe what you see. Believe what I tell you. So that helped me a lot to prepare myself.
On that day, 1 month before, I had made an arrangement for some Danish Christians that were volunteering at the hotel in Ariel to take a trip to Jerusalem. I did not realize it was going to be the Jewish festival of Purim that evening. I didn't realize that. And when the day came, we decided to go ahead with it anyway, even though there was a holiday coming up. And I never go to those trips, ever. I arrange them and then I stay home. I do not go on the trips. That morning I woke up, I got dressed, and I walked out the door. Ami was supposed to go to school that day. When he saw me leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, he went back to bed and he didn't go to school. I had a friend that was cleaning my house that day. And all of a sudden, she was outside the door and she saw a Purim package, a gift package, outside next to the gate. She picked it up, she brought it in, she put it on the table. Ami woke up, he saw the package, he called me on the telephone in Jerusalem. He told me he had not gone to school and that someone had delivered a beautiful Purim gift package full of candy with a greeting that said, Happy Purim, with faces, smiley faces. We didn't know who it came from, but he asked me if he could open it, and I said yes. He put down the telephone. My friend who was cleaning the house left. He opened up the package, and it blew up. It was a bomb that was inside the package. My son, one of my sons, was in the army in Samaria at that time. And he called me up and he said, a terror attack just happened in Ariel, and it happened on our street. I called up Ami and there was no answer. I called up my friend who had been cleaning the house, and the police answered. And the police told me, something has exploded in your house and your son is on the way to the hospital. You have to get there immediately. I screamed at him, is he alive? And he said, get to the hospital right away. We went very quickly to the hospital. It took us at least 45 minutes to get there. And when we came into the hospital, some of my children had already arrived, but the doctors met us, and they told us that Ami was very, very critically, seriously injured, and he had to go into an operation right away, and he might not survive the operation. And so Ami was taken into the operating room. The police also came, and they were asking David information where they might start to look for the person that did this. And as we were waiting, the Lord began to speak to us all. And he began to lay a foundation in our lives, which was the foundation of having to forgiveness. So I asked somebody, I was so afraid, my heart was beating, and I asked somebody for a Bible because I didn't have a Bible with me, and someone gave me a small book of Psalms. I opened up the Psalms to 36, chapter 36, and it was a rhema word of God for me, because it talked about the wicked people, the evil people, and why they do the things that they do. And they do it because they hate. And the Lord spoke to my heart, this was a hate crime. And then it goes on to talk about the goodness of God and the justice of God. But then at the end it said, don't let the evil person come against you and make you go away, drive you away. That was the second to last verse. And the Lord spoke to my heart, do not move from Ariel, because I wanted to fly away from Ariel as far as I could go. David did not feel that way ever, but for me, that's what I wanted to do. And the Lord spoke to my heart, stay in Ariel. And the last verse said, there the people that do evil have fallen and they will never rise again. And the Lord spoke to my heart, the person who did this to your son is already destroyed, but I want him to be saved. And right there, I felt God's love right here above my head, and I realized that he wanted to give me his love for the person that had done that to my son. And in the beginning I said no. But then I said yes, because I knew that God, if it was God, I had to receive it. And I said yes, and he put his love in my heart for the person that did that, the bomber, the person that had prepared the bomb and brought it to our house. And the Lord spoke to my heart that we have to pray for this man's salvation every day, which we have tried to do. So in the meantime, Ami survived the operation, and they brought him to the intensive care unit in a children's hospital. It was a children's hospital, and so we parents had to be there all the time with him. And when we saw him finally at 2 o'clock in the morning, it happened at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we finally saw him at 2 o'clock in the morning. He was hooked up to tubes and bandaged from his head to his toes. And the doctor said to us, he was in a coma, and the doctor said he would speak to us in the morning about what his injuries were. He was severely damaged. But he said, you have to lie down. They had beds for the parents. And when we went to lie down, that's when we really got into trouble. Because for myself, I felt my thoughts went into 1,000 directions at the same time, and I didn't have the power to gather my thoughts and bring them back. And I said to David, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. But he couldn't help me, because he said that he felt like he had fallen into a hole that was so deep that he could never get up again. And right there, the Lord showed up. And he showed David some things, and he spoke to David. And as David saw and heard what the Lord was doing, he spoke it into my ear. And he said he saw the Lord sitting on his throne. And he understood right there that even this was under God's control completely. And as he saw that, he saw death coming into our apartment where the explosion had taken place. And the Lord said to death, you cannot have him. So David said, Ami is going to live. And then the Lord spoke to him and said this, a decision has been made in heaven that you won't understand, but I am going to glorify myself. I have decided to glorify myself. And Ami is going to be fine. Ami is going to be fine. Ami is going to be fine. He is going to walk out of this hospital. It was so real. God's presence was standing among us that we were able to get up and wash our faces and eat something. And then in the morning, the doctors told us the terrible damage that had been done to Ami. He had 2nd and 3rd degree burns all over his body. He had muscle and skin that was blown away from his stomach and his thighs. He had lost three toes were blown off of his foot. He had nerve damage in his arms. His eardrums were blown out. He had 100 pieces of shrapnel in his body and his eyes. And he had a hole in his chest that was big enough you could see the lungs breathing. And he said, but I have to tell you something. I can't speak to you exactly as a doctor right now. He said, because your son has experienced a miracle. Last night he was dying, but this morning he is stable.
Wow.
He is extremely critical, but he is stable. But I have to tell you that the reason why this happened was because the news of the bomb had gone out over the internet, all over Israel and all over the world, and people immediately started praying and crying out for Ami from the first minute that it happened until all his operations were completed. That operation was the first of 14 operations that he had within the next 2.5 to 3 years. And then after that, he had some plastic surgeries. So he's had about 17 operations in all since then. But the body of Christ had accompanied us in prayer all the way through from the very first minute. So from then on, we had so many people coming to the hospital to visit. We had up to 80 people in the waiting room coming to visit. There was prayer in the morning, There was prayer in the afternoon. There was prayer at night. Half of the people of Ariel came.
Half of the people.
Believers and non-believers. Believers came from the north and the south. They came from all over Israel to stand with us and to pray with us. And everyone came to me, whether it was doctors, people from Ariel that were not believers, and believers came to us and said the same thing over and over again. We don't know why we're saying this, but we think that Ami is going to be okay. But it was because the Lord told us, Ami is going to be fine. Ami is going to be fine. And everybody felt it. And Ami, after 6 weeks and about 5 operations that he had in the hospital during those 6 weeks, walked out of the hospital. But he went to a rehabilitation hospital after that. And all in all, he was in the hospital for 5.5 months. But he healed so quickly, his wounds healed so quickly, that it amazed the doctors. But it was because people were praying from all over the world. They were sending us postcards and emails. Every day I would get a pile like this of postcards. And until 12 midnight, Ami was telling me, read every postcard to me so I can go to sleep.
We have 5,000 postcards.
Yeah.
Not emails.
Postcards.
From Vietnam, Cambodia, Korea, the Philippines, Japan, Cuba, all over the world. My best one, it says, Ami, I'm writing to you this postcard. I don't want to, but my mother told me I have to. I hope you feel better. So we have a lot of interesting postcards. We have many Orthodox Jews call us for a long time from B'nai Brak, religious areas. And they told us over the phone, please forgive us.
Mm-hmm. So when he finally got out of the hospital, out of the rehabilitation hospital, after 2 weeks he went back to school, but he was still not in good condition. He had to wear something all over his body because of the burns. He had been burned all over his body. But a month after he began to go to school, his basketball coach called him, because Ami was always a basketball player. He's
almost 2 meters.
Yeah, he's 1.98 m, or that's 6 feet 6 inches, and he played basketball from the time he was 8 years old, and he wanted to be a professional basketball player. So his coach called him and said, now he has to come back to basketball. But Ami said, I can't even hold the basketball. He couldn't even open his hands all the way. And he had so much pain from the nerve damage. He said, I can't even hold the basketball in my hand. What am I going to do? The coach said, I know what to do. The coach had been in a war in Lebanon in 1982, and a grenade had blown up next to him. He had lost an eye, and he said, I had many of the same injuries that Ami had, and I know what to do. So he came back to basketball. It was very hard. He was always in a lot of pain. And finally, the coach calls me, and I said to the coach, it's too hard for him. I don't think he can do it. He said, listen to me. He said, every practice, that boy does something that he couldn't do the practice before. He said, in 3 months, he'll be back on the court playing basketball. In 1 month, he was back on the court playing basketball. And now today, he is in college in the United States, studying psychology and media, and he was playing on the college basketball teams. The Lord did a total miracle of restoration in him. And I have to say that in our whole family, each one of us had to come to that place of forgiveness. And what was forgiveness? Forgiveness was not saying it's okay that it happened, because it wasn't okay. It was terrible that it happened. But we had to take that person and put him into God's hands and let God deal with him, and not allow ourselves to have any kind of feeling of revenge or bitterness or hatred towards him. So after 1.5 years, the person who brought the bomb and made the bomb was arrested. His name is Jack Titel. He's an Orthodox Jew. He lived 20 minutes from here, next to Shiloh. And he decided that we were dangerous people, we were false prophets, and because we were spreading the gospel to the Jewish people. And he decided that we had to die. But that day, we weren't in the house. Ami only was in the house. And he was arrested. For 3 years, he was on trial. He also murdered 2 Palestinians just because they were Arabs, and he put bombs in different places against people that he considered to be false prophets in the land. And he was on trial for 3 years, and in the end, he received more than 90 years in prison. One day, we still pray for him. And if the Lord opens the door and makes the way, we will visit him in prison, if there is ever a way to do that, to share the gospel with him. But the Lord has been glorified in a very big way, because we had the opportunity to speak about Yeshua to the whole nation of Israel through this incident. And I have to say that our desire from the time that we came to Israel, immigrated to Israel in 1985, was just one thing, that the Lord Yeshua will be lifted up in this land, and that we would have an opportunity to glorify him. And we were on television, we were in the newspaper, we were interviewed on radio, and every time, for 3.5 years it went on, and every time we were able to say something or about the fact that there are Jews that live in this country, that believe in Yeshua, that he is the Messiah of Israel, and that through him we have had the power to forgive and go on with our lives.
범인이 잡힌 이후에도 또 데이빗 집을 향해서 정통 유대인들이 몰려와서 어떤 공격을 시도한다든가 테러를 시도한다든가 시위를 벌인다든가 그런 일은 또 없었습니까?
Wow. You know, every Purim, except for this one, they put a package in front of my door. Every year, except this Purim, they put a package in my door. Wow. The police comes all the time. But they make a mistake. Each time they put a package, the police comes, the reporters come, the name of Jesus is lifted. So they make a very big mistake. There's people that did not talk to me before, now they talk to me. I think the religious people try to keep away from us, because we read on the internet, there's an anti-religious, Yalachim. It said they should leave them alone. Each time something happens to them, they run to the news and they talk more about Jesus. Don't bother them any longer. But I think we have more of an open door with the people. I think God has created, you know, in the book of Isaiah chapter 8, it says, "Here am I, and the children you have given me. I will make them a sign to the house of Israel." When I read that, I was so happy. I said, good, it means God's going to use my children. But I never thought it would be this way. My son gave me a verse yesterday in Romans chapter 8. It says, the difficult things and the things you suffer today, compared to glory, it will be nothing. So this is the way we see it. What we don't see is eternal, and the things we see are temporary. So by God's grace, we're making a long-time investment. It pays better.
두 분은 테러 용의자에 대해서 용서를 했다고는 하지만은 그 테러의 그 피해 당사자인 아미는 어떻습니까? 그 어떤 외상 스트레스 같은 거, 트라우마 이런 거는 지금 없습니까?
You know, when Ami woke up after the coma, he says to me, "Did the religious people do this to me?"
The religious Jews, yeah.
That was very good, for the reason the doctor told us he could be a vegetable, he might not be remembered. We don't know what's going to happen. So that was a good sign. He remembered. And I said to him, Ami, you have to defend yourself now. You have to forgive. Forgiveness helped him with the trauma. The doctors gave him pills for trauma. He says, I don't want it. So the head doctor had to come and speak to us to tell him he has to take the pills. He's going to have trauma. And Ami said, I don't want to be a drug addict. I want to face life. I'm okay. I've forgiven. I'm going to be fine. So Ami is not bitter, very optimistic. He's not down. People that they had nothing like this happen to them have more trouble than him. Forgiveness helps you with the future. Yeah.
And then even the next Purim. Then even the very next year on Purim, he wanted to celebrate Purim, and he wanted to,
He painted his hair.
He would always make his hair a different color for Purim as a celebration, and he wanted to do it again, and he wanted to go to all the parties. And I had made an arrangement for us to go out of Ariel for Purim. And then everybody got so disappointed that they waited until after he got back to have a Purim party, and he went to the Purim, and he was happy.
This is why he wants to be a psychologist. He says, I want to help
Other people
with trauma.
Right. And he never had any flashbacks. He never had any nightmares. I mean, he was delivered from all of it. It was amazing. It really was amazing.
Yeah.
And he's very healthy in his heart and in his mind.
그럼 지금 아미는 몸 상태가 많이 회복이 되어진 거죠? 어떻습니까? 앞으로 더 수술을 또 받아야 됩니까?
He needs laser surgery. He's much better. We took him to the States, and they burn off the scars. But the doctor said he would take about 3 years to look normal. But it'll take some time. Now, the bomb expert here in Ariel, he told me there's something I don't understand. He says two things. He says the bomb was here, and behind him, the refrigerator was destroyed, everything was destroyed. How is it didn't take off his face? Number one,
hands.
How does he have his hands? He says, I never seen such a thing. He says, it must have been a miracle. Mm-hmm. Because most people he works with from bombs, no hands in the face. But it's just over here, from top to bottom. But he looks very good compared to where he was. Because he didn't have no skin. They took off skin and they put it on, and little by little. But he's not thinking about too much about it, right? In that particular way.
No.
Yeah, he's learned to accept many things.
2008년도에 있었던 그 사건이 전 세계 기독교인들이 관심을 갖고 이메일도 보내고 우편엽서도 보낼 정도로 이렇게 큰 사건이었는데, 이 사건이 이스라엘에 있는 그 메시아닉주 이 단체에, 메시아닉주 세계에 어떤 영향을 미쳤다라고 생각하십니까?
I'll tell you in the words of an Israeli that called me up in the hospital. This is what she told me. She told me, David, she introduced herself on the phone. She says, I've been a believer. She says, I'm Israeli. My family doesn't know I'm a believer. And where I work for many years, they don't know I'm a believer. I've been ashamed of Jesus. Maybe because of people like me that have been ashamed of Jesus, afraid to talk about Jesus. This happened to you? She says, if this is the way it's going to be, I made a decision to tell the people in my job I believe in Jesus and to tell my family. She says, through what I'm reading about what took place with Ami, it's about time that myself and the other believers, we become more vocal to talk about who Yeshua is. My neighbor downstairs, we call her the voice of Israel because she knows everybody's business. And she, during the time of the hospital, she says, you know something? These people wanted to destroy you. They did the opposite. You have so many people visiting, they actually expanded, advertised what you believe. in a moment of time. So they lose and you win. But with the believers, I think the believers in this country, we've been here since '85. The believers sometimes, we built our own kingdoms. And it reminds me very much of the book of Haggai. It says, why are you building your house? The house of God is in ruins. It has to be built. Forget about building your house. Build the house of God. So I think after the bombing, there's been a change of attitude. One lady told me, a believer, she says, I've been here since 1965. 1965, I've never seen people witness like after the bomb.
There was so much opportunity.
She says, sad to say, it took something like this to wake us up. So those are some of the things.
We also realized as a body that we have to love each other more. And that these things, it wouldn't be the last time something like this would happen. You know, it's very possible that more of us will be really extremely persecuted as the time goes on. And as the coming of the Lord comes nearer, we have to be prepared. Each person has to be prepared really to suffer for the Lord. But our testimony is that if you do, and if something does, God forbid, happen, you know, of a violent nature, then God is with you so much, and He's able to take every single tragedy, no matter how bad it is, and use it for good and to glorify His name. So we have to just believe in that and trust in the Lord, that no matter what happens to us, for the sake of the name of Yeshua, that you know, we know that we'll be able to go through it and come out in victory on the other side.
왜 이런 일들이 다른 메시아닉주 가정 말고 하필이면 이 데빗 오르티즈 데빗 집에서 이런 일이 일어난 거라고 생각하십니까?
Why did it happen to us? Because we were witnessing. I mean, you can be a believer and not tell anybody and you'll be fine. But the minute you open your mouth to begin to witness and share the gospel with either Palestinians or Jews, then you become a target, period, you know? And so this is the battle, basically, that, you know, the choice has to be made. For myself, as soon as, I come from a very large Jewish family that's very strong in the tradition of Judaism. And if I had never told my family anything, I would have been okay. But as soon as I told my parents that I began to believe in Jesus, that He's the Jewish Messiah, I was disowned from my family. My father did not talk to me for 15 years. And I had to deal with that, but I knew it was going to happen. And it was difficult. The Lord brought us back together after 15 years. And at the end of His life, my father accepted the Lord by a miracle. He was so against Jesus. But he accepted the Lord because he knew when he was going to die that he was not prepared to die and that he needed his sins forgiven, so he received the Lord. So the catalyst is witnessing. That's what causes the problems.
What took place with us when we first moved to Ariel, there were 4 believers. They told us not to witness. After we continued to witness, we told them we cannot do that. We had a demonstration here. They tried to take our children out of school. They did many things against us. And the reason why they put the bomb is because they saw it didn't work. Mm-hmm. No matter what they tried, we were still here. So they figured we'll put the bomb and that will be over with. But if my neighbors, which are religious, before the bomb, they were talking to me. And these people saw that we were communicating, and we were 4 believers in Ariel, now we're over 50.
Wow.
So they were trying to stop the progress. So they tried lawyers, they tried demonstrations, they tried posters, they tried many things. But the reason why they put the bomb, because see, if we were not communicating with the community, I did the army, the children did the army, we're part of society. If they saw that the society would reject us, they didn't have to put the bomb. But one of the reasons they put the bomb was just to stop the whole thing. Just to stop. But by God's grace, we're here. We continue to be here. Yeah. But Jack Titel, in his confession, he said the reason why he put the bond, this is in his words. It was in the newspaper. He says he wanted to start with us. He felt that, in his words, he says we were too radical. And he will start with us and move to somebody else.
용서 영화 맨 마지막 장면에 보면은 예수를 믿는다는 이유 때문에 그 팔레스타인 법정으로 재판을 받으러 가는 그 장면이 나와요. 그 팔레스타인 크리스찬. 그 뒤에 어떻게 됐습니까?
About 3 days ago, one of them had a court case. The believers, Palestinian believers, continue to increase.
데이비드 오르티즈 씨도 전도하는 과정에서 또 그 이후에도 그 사람들한테 공격의 대상이 되지 않습니까? 전도할 때 굉장히 위험할 것 같은데요.
Yeah, the Mufti of Jerusalem, his name is Sabri, he said in the newspaper that I should be killed. It's called a fatwa. He said that the head of David Ortiz should be removed from his shoulder. So I walk around free, but with wisdom. I try to use wisdom, but when the time comes, it comes. I was driving, I picked up 4 Palestinians. When I picked them up, it was a very hot day. The man next to me, the Palestinian, told him in back of me, he told him, leave him alone. He's not Jewish, he's Christian. La Yehud, Mesihi. So when I look, he has a knife in my back.